News time. So the first bit of news here. Last week we talked about Nintendo basically shutting down the NES manufacturing, the NES Mini. Yeah, a lot of people were upset about that. It was weird, a lot of people had a tough enough time getting their hands on it. It was a problem with resellers and scalpers and stuff like that. And
they came out with a 2.0 where it was, had a longer cord and all this type of stuff that, it didn't have the bullshit stuff that they had to deal with on the first one. That'd be great,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be pissed.
According to multiple sources, though, we're actually probably going to be seeing a SNES Mini or a SNES Mini later this year, this holiday season, which isn't actually that surprising. So Nintendo is set to launch the SNES Mini this year. They launched the Mini NES that we just talked about. It was such a hard time for people to get a hold of, and they discontinued it recently, which got people upset. This probably means that we won't see NES Minis in the future, or at least for a while, if the SNES Mini is coming out this next year. Huge game catalog. It's going to be interesting to see what the price point of this is. If it's going to be $60 like the NES Mini, how many games are going to be included on it. Obviously, you've probably heard on the internet by now all of these lists of games that you would want on it. But do you guys think that these sources saying that this is coming out this year kind of says like, yeah, the NES Mini was discontinued and we're probably not going to see it for a while?
Yeah, I've definitely, and it's so frustrating because the timing, man, just the timing. So I'm in GameStop the other day. I'm asking about Pro controllers, and then I see the NES Mini boxes behind the desk. And I'm like, is that the real deal right there? You're not just, screwing with me. Those are actual consoles in that box. He's like, yeah, man. And he said they had them in stock for the last few weeks. And I was like, oh, I get paid on Friday. I'll come back in here and grab a Pro controller for Mario Kart and an NES Classic. They've had them in stock, so it shouldn't be too big of a problem. And then, within like 24, 48 hours, we get the news that they're discontinuing. And, of course, by the time I got my paycheck, I'm calling every GameStop in town, and nobody has one. So, fuck me, right? Fuck me, right, Nintendo? Is that what you want?
So, I think my conclusion here is that they're not really concerned with immediate profit. That's obvious, but they're more concerned with like keeping an image for themselves, like putting out these limited run little consoles,
being that cool retro Nintendo.
Right. They want to keep their image up as like, look at what we've done. Like we're so cool. Like, because they could make so much money. These things have a huge mass appeal. They could be just raking it in right now, and they're not. And it's a mystery to everyone. I think like we're all kind of missing the marketing here, and that's not really marketing with the goal of selling more, but just for their own image. That's the vibe I get, where they're not really concerned about the cash.
So take this with a grain of salt, obviously. But one of the chicks that I called at a local GameStop here in Nashville said that the reason that they were so scarce and that Nintendo was basically so skittish, I guess, about putting out stock and really having them out there was because they were there was a part or something that was making them more expensive. Kind of, it seemed like she was saying they were they were really not worth what they were selling. They were taking a loss probably. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but either way, it's just like, dude, this is not this console is nothing hard. This is the company that's been accused, what we'll talk about later, of, selling ROMs on their eShop that are just emulated versions of their old games. Like, this is not hard shit to do. And making this console, regardless if there's one part or another, it's like with the part or the short cord and the stock, it's like, come on, this is not, I feel like if there was a PS1 Classic, which at this point I don't think Sony would do because it would just be so copycat, but you just know that Sony could be like, yeah, here's a PS1 Classic, 20 games, you can get it now, and it's not that hard to find, and it's $60 or whatever the fuck, it doesn't have this tiny ass cord where you have to sit 2 inches from your TV. I think it's just Nintendo. I don't get it. I don't get it, man.
Now with them having discontinued the NES Classic, it's going to be even 10 times harder to find an SNES Classic when they do come out, right? Because everyone is going to think in their head,
scalpers are going to buy
bucket
bucket loads.
Right.
The next story, coming from a different publisher, we're talking about Nintendo. Bandai Namco, last week we talked about this teaser they had that was very Dark Souls inspired. They actually had the tagline at the end of it, hashtag prepare to dine, which is a plan prepare to die. We made some speculations of what it could be. We talked about it possibly being like vampires or something. I said it could possibly be a follow-up to God Eater. And that's essentially what it is. I mean, it's a game where you eat gods. The game's called Code Vein. Really interesting premise, really interesting art style. We'll talk about that. But real quick, it basically, I'll give you guys a game overview that they actually put up on the website. In the face of certain death, we rise. In the not-too-distant future, a mysterious disaster has brought collapse to the world as we know it. Towering skyscrapers, once symbols of prosperity, are now lifeless graves of humanity's past, pierced by the thorns of judgment. At the center of the destruction lies a hidden society of revenants called Vane. This final stronghold is where the remaining few fight to survive, blessed with gifts of power in exchange for their memories and a thirst for blood. Given to the bloodlust fully and risk becoming one of the lost, fiendish ghouls devoid of any remaining humanity. There's a lot of like Dark Souls buzzwords in here, for me personally. Wandering aimlessly in search of blood, the lost will stop at nothing to satisfy their hunger. Team up and embark on a journey to the ends of hell to unlock your past and escape your living nightmare in Code Vein.
Sounds like Bloodborne right there.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I want to talk about the art style. We have a couple of things about the game. One of the biggest things is they talk about creating your own character and then choosing a partner that will go through the game that has their own combat style and backstory. So those characters are pre-made. And that's pretty cool because it gives some incentive to replayability, right? All these characters seem so different if they have different combat styles and stuff. Could make the game easier, harder, different. There could be different event triggers in the game depending on who your partner is. So I think that's really cool. I really want to dive into the art style real quick though. So we were talking before the show that this looks like it's heavily inspired by a lot of other gothic type games like the Bloodbornes, like the Dark Souls. And it's funny because the characters in this very gothic dark world, but then you look at the actual faces of the characters and they're very anime. So I just want to hear from you guys.
It's like futuristic cyberpunk type weapons and stuff too, right?
Yeah. So it's a really cool mashup of a lot of different things. And yeah, I just want to get your guys' initial impressions on Code Vein now that we know what this game is and what we kind of can expect. We haven't seen gameplay necessarily, but we have enough stills to kind of get a feel for it.
Yeah, I'm real excited about this actually. I think I've played a bit of the God Eater games, and you know they're definitely not knocking your socks off. I would say they're definitely not knocking everybody's socks off. They're knocking some people's socks off in a niche audience or whatever. But I definitely think these developers are capable of making a great game. And this is kind of in that Japanese AA. I think people talk about AA games disappearing, but I do think there's more than people realize. Your Just Cause 3s and your Neos and stuff like that. I honestly think that Bloodborne and Dark Souls are more AA than AAA. Just kind of the way that they look and feel and how you interact with the game, the menus and such. It's not a slight on them. It's just how I see them as categorized. And so this kind of looks like really similar to how Neo took the Bloodborne formula, essentially, and did its own thing. It's samurai. Bloodborne, of course. I don't think this will be as close to Bloodborne. I don't think this will be like gothic cyberpunk Bloodborne, but I do think, Dom, I was actually going to point this out to you. I think we're going to get a lot more. We've been getting these Dark Souls clones or Dark Souls heavily inspired games for the last few years. Lords of the Fallen, and then all your 2D stuff like, Hyper Light Drifter or Salt and Sanctuary. But I feel like we're going to get a lot more Bloodborne clones, how we have Neo and now this. I feel like this is going to lean more towards Bloodborne.
Yeah, I'm rolling through the screenshots right now, and it's tough to describe. So, it is a cool mashup, like you guys both said. Of I could name like 5 games. It looks like this took something from, and the art style is really cool, and just the creativity and the design of some of the characters and monsters and so on is really cool. Like graphically speaking, it looks like one of the God Eater games, right? Where it's not really up to par of games nowadays. Like looking at the the textures on the character models and stuff. It's some of it. Now who knows? Like these are just screenshots of who the heck knows. But that's just an observation. But yeah, this looks cool as hell. I'm pumped to see more about it. So.
The reason I say that I think we'll see more Bloodborne clones than Dark Souls is I think if you're trying to have not necessarily a mainstream hit, but just a broader audience, hit a broader audience, and bring these like really tough, hard-ass, tough-as-nail games, and actually sell it to people, then I think it's a lot easier to make that fast-paced Bloodborne combat than it is to be like, yeah, it's a lot more like Dark Souls where it's slow and plodding and still tough as fucking nails, so that may be why we get more clones towards the Bloodborne end.
Yeah, maybe. It's an interesting thing. Like, I mean, if something's getting inspired by Bloodborne, then it is getting inspired by Dark Souls because Bloodborne is inspired by Dark Souls. So it's like
I guess I'm talking about like more the combat, you know?
The speed of it, yeah. It's interesting. I think a lot of people like both Bloodborne and Dark Souls, but I think there is a camp of people who are more pro Bloodborne and more pro Souls, and that argument can happen forever.
Or,
but I do.
For example, Neo is clearly has more Bloodborne than Souls generally. Obviously, like you said, if it has Bloodborne, then it has Souls. Period. But Neo is a very Bloodborne-y type game.
Yeah, but Neo is also original in a lot of its stuff because it isn't an open, interconnected world. It's these like set places you go to, you fight there, and then you leave, and then you go to a new place. You know,
right? And it has a lot of Ninja Gaiden connections, which Souls has a lot of Ninja Gaiden connections. There's all that,
Yeah, I do agree with you. I think this is going to be faster paced as opposed to slower paced. It definitely brings more as obviously it's a action RPG, but it seems more so heavily into JRPG, right? It looks interesting. I think the graphic fidelity, it is the textures are a little bit lower quality, but I don't think that's a huge concern for me as long as the gameplay's solid. That'll win me over 100%. It's not like bad, but it's not like pristine. So I'm interested to see gameplay. I think that's where I'll definitely make my decision as to whether this is a game I'm going to be getting, or if it's a game I'll hold off on sale, or if it's a game I don't even worry about touching, whether it's good or not, just based on the gameplay, because screenshots can only do so much. It's like, oh, this looks like this, and this, but does it play like this, and this? So we'll definitely have to wait for that and see more about the game. But it's cool to see a name attached to a game, and no wonder they use Prepare to Die, because it is heavily inspired by, Dark Souls. So it's really cool. My only problem with this whole thing, and doesn't even need to be a huge topic for us to talk about, I hate that all of these news outlets made it a point that they couldn't talk about it being Bandai Namco's new IP. All of them wanted the clicks, so all of them said Dark Souls publisher. All of them said Dark Souls publisher, which kind of bothered me. It's like, well, I understand that, but Bandai Namco's been around a lot longer in different forms. Obviously, Bandai Namco, way before Dark Souls. So it's weird to me that Dark Souls isn't all Bandai Namco has, and they just wanted those clicks. So whatever.
Just in general, I think it's really cool to see. We're not. We talked about this last year around E3. I don't think we're necessarily seeing a Japanese renaissance, but we're definitely seeing a resurgence from Japan that is really cool to watch right now, and I think this will be part of it. Obviously, Neo and Gravity Rush and Nier, all the stuff that's coming out right now is absolutely part of that too. So
I think they've always been around, but I think that they're making a stronger push to market in the West. I think the games have always been around. It's just I think that they've
adapt their rules of how they operate to kind of work more globally, I guess.
Yeah. And it's interesting because like the East gets inspired by the West, and then the West gets inspired by the East, and it's like this back and forth thing that's really cool to check out. The last news story here, we talked about a while back after episode 3 came out. Please, episode 4, don't have the hiatus that we had to wait for episode 3, and we don't. The Walking Dead: A New Frontier episode 4 comes out April 25th. A little over a month since the last episode, but it's definitely not the 2 to 3 months we had to wait. A week after Guardians of the Galaxy, which is huge. And to me, this seems like they're doubling down, and they want to finish Walking Dead so that way they can focus on Guardians and all the other projects. And I don't think that means it's rushed by any means, but I do think that they're putting extra effort into, we can delay Guardians episode 2 for maybe 3 to 4 weeks extra. Let's make sure we finish Walking Dead and worry about that first, because The Walking Dead is a series we focused on and it has a lineage, you know.
Well, I think they're going to try to have Guardians Episode 2 out right around that movie, though.
Well, the movie came out this week, didn't it? Or does it come out next week?
No, it comes out May 5th.
May 5th. Okay. I've seen like a lot of press for it. It seems like it was coming out this week. Like heavy press for it.
Oh, they just started allowing press to watch it.
Yeah, but they've released like 98 teasers, so I assumed it was coming out this week. It's a whole nother discussion. They've released too many goddamn teasers for that movie. Anyways, super excited for episode 4. I don't know if you guys saw the promo image for it, but it shows David in a very precarious position with a noose around his neck, which looks crazy. The episode, I believe, is called Thicker Than Water, which is a really cool title. I'm excited.
The way they set this up is going to be great, man.
Yeah. I'm super excited for this. I think we all are. We're all going to look to play it next week and have our impressions on next week's episode, so definitely look out for that. I don't know if you guys have anything to add there. We're just all excited that it's coming out really soon, right? Sooner than we expected.
Just since we're talking about Telltale and we mentioned Guardians, I was going to say I went ahead and got Guardians because it was discounted for a certain time if you went ahead and picked it up on PlayStation Plus. But I am going to wait, just like I did on Batman. I'm going to wait for all 5 episodes on that. And, Walking Dead we're doing that on the podcast every time it comes out. So I'm
actually, you know what? I'm going to join you on that. I was going to play Guardians because I bought it. I'm just going to wait. I'll wait for the 5 episodes with you. That sounds good.
I think Walking Dead is that one Telltale series where it's like everybody's really into it each episode, you know?
Yeah. And, I mean, spoiling something in Guardians that I don't want to get spoiled isn't as crazy as getting spoiled for something with Walking Dead, you know? So, I'm with you there. I think I'll just wait. Dom, you're excited too, right? I don't know if you have anything else to add.
Of course.
Yeah. Just getting our hands already.
Oh, Guardians is one that you actually like, right?
No, he hasn't seen Guardians. That's the one we
tell him. I thought that was the one Marvel movie that you had seen. Motherfucker.
No,
I've seen a couple. I don't want to. There's so many. How could you have not seen any?
I think the newest one he saw was Civil War, right?
Yeah, so that was a good movie.
Dom, your homework is to watch Guardians of the Galaxy 2014.
I don't know. We'll see.